Welcome to the Angel Rewatch, a spoiler-free retrospective podcast on Angel. I'm William.
And I'm Derek, and this is a podcast for Blood Money, originally airing January 23rd, 2001, written by Sean Ryan and Mira Smith. Gunn and Wesley are playing a deadly game of Risk. It's a board game, just to be clear, when Cordelia gets a vision. Axes in hand, they go off to fight a dragon that farts fire. Unfortunately, we don't get to see this fight, and instead we see Angel bumping into a cute blonde girl on the street. Her name is Anne, and she tells Angel that she runs a homeless shelter for teens. Angel seems pretty normal, but that's until he goes back to Hyperion and we see his serial killer wall full of pictures of Anne. One of them is her talking to Lindsay. Angel then goes to Merle for information, and Merle tells him that Wolfram Hart is doing charity work for Anne's shelter pro bono. Angel figures that there is an angle, which, by the way, is a hard sentence to read. Anyway, he, like a serial killer again, shows up in Lila's car. He threatens her, and she gets spooked. Lila tells Lindsay about her worries, and because Lindsay wasn't threatened, he doesn't care too much. A demon named Boone then shows up at the office and explains he has a history with Angel and he would like to settle it. For those playing at home, settle in this context means murder him real good. Lindsay is all for it, but Lila says the senior partners want Angel alive. Lindsay doesn't care. Wesley, Cordelia, and Gunn are celebrating the victory over the dragon with the deadly farting problem. Cordelia tells them in addition to her new hair, she also has a new office. They all go off to see it while arguing about the name of their new agency. Angel goes to Anne's shelter and tells her that Wolfram and Hart are playing her. They will only give her a fraction of the money they receive from the big charity event and keep millions for themselves. She wants proof, and Angel says he has it, but then Lindsay shows up with Boone in tow. Boone and Angel fight, and Angel barely escapes. Lindsay tries to lure talk Anne, but she isn't really buying it. She says that Angel has proof, and that sends Lindsay into a paranoid tailspin. He accuses Lila of slipping information to someone, but she says that she didn't. And then they realize by talking about it in public, Angel could have the evidence right now. Angel shows back up at the shelter, and Anne basically tells him that she mostly believes him. However, even if Wolfram and Hart take most of their money, it's still more than the shelter has ever had. Angel asks if she's really okay knowing where that money is going towards. At the fundraiser, everything appears to be coming up Lindsay and Lila. Lila schmoozes their new boss, Mr. Reed, and there's no Angel in sight. Of course, though, he's watching from the rafters, but Boone tackles him to the ground floor and they start to fight. During a momentary break in the fight, Lindsay asks Boone if he has the tape. Angel tells him that he didn't even have the tape to begin with, and we see Anne walking to the video equipment, tape in hand. Lindsay and Lila freak out, but the tape turns out to be embarrassing home videos of Wesley and Cordelia. Angel tells them that he never had any tape, but he just wanted to make them look like fools. He also robbed them, or to be more exact, Boone did. He's been working with Angel the whole time. It's hard to say who's angry about the deception, Mr. Reed, Lila, Lindsay, or Anne. Anne slaps Angel, angry that he lied to her and she won't get any money. Angel tells her that she didn't really want the money anyway because it was tainted. When Anne protests, Angel tells her that she doesn't really mean that. Unlike him, she still cares. At Wolfram Hart, Mr. Reed scolds Lila and Lindsay for the miserable failures that they are, and Lindsay thinks it's a good time to get all windy and asks why they can't just kill Angel. Mr. Reed tells him very forcefully that it's clear from the prophecies that Angel has a big part to play in the coming apocalypse, but is not known which side he will be on. The senior partners want to keep him away from the side of good, and there's this whole thing where they have a show named after him too. Boone shows up at the Hyperion with the money. Apparently he wasn't entirely lying to Wolfram and Hart, and appears that Angel and Boone do have a history, and a fight that is still unfinished. The winner of the fight will get the money from the charity. Angel, of course, shows up at the shelter and gives Anne the money. She notices that there's some blood on it, and then she tells Angel it will wash out. It's the end of the episode.
What's next? Vampire Cowboy?
What?
All I could think about was what Spike said from way, way back, because of Boone is just such a... Yeah, the cowboy. They even call him Cowboy. But
okay,
no,
so wait,
weird.
I want to get into that. They call him a cowboy.
Showdown.
Well, Lindsay does. This is my question. Right. Lindsay says the cowboy stole it, but there is an actual cowboy. So is he stupid, or was there a part that was cut out where the cowboy, the actor, actually does steal the money?
No, he's just calling the...
Well, that's dumb, because there's a cowboy. There's an actual cowboy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Why doesn't he say the demon? That seems to be a more descriptive term to describe Boone than the cowboy.
Well, apparently he has this thing about not describing Boone as a demon in front of people that, Like, whenever Boone first shows up with Anne, he doesn't say, hey, look, I brought a demon. And I was immediately...
Okay, yeah.
Well, we'll get into it, but, yeah. Lindsay can just not say things, and I'd be...
Well, that line doesn't really bother me, because I'm willing to accept that Lindsay is an idiot at any time, so whatever.
I mean, Boone's kind of like a cowboy, and they even do the standoff at the end, which is cool, but...
He's like a cowboy that has demon brass knuckles. Okay, so I don't mind this episode. I actually kind of like it.
I tend to agree with you. I think even for a filler episode, it still does some nice things to add to the mythology, and our characters are at appropriate levels.
Yes.
Like, it worked pretty well at... Like, I liked seeing the rest of the gang again, and how they're
they were.
Yeah. I mean, as brief as they are, they're still getting more time in the spotlight than they have previously.
Mm-hmm.
Getting to see them without Angel and how they interact was interesting for me.
For this particular episode, they can't really be in it any more than they are without being distracting, because they're not doing anything with this whole Anne situation. But you can't just not have them in an episode since they are series regulars. We need to see them contractually. So I liked their two brief scenes in this episode, but I would like next week for them to maybe be the B story instead of the C story, and maybe not see Lyle and Lindsay for a bit, or at least have them be marginalized or minute. Their role be as minimal as Wesley,
as the gang was in this episode. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. I mean, any focus on the rest of the gang would be good. I'm applauding them for what they barely had in this. It was just basically means that's been missing this season, mm-hmm. and it would be really nice to get more from the rest of our gang. I did like the cold open with them playing Risk
and the farting dragon.
No, not so much the farting dragon.
I did. I don't know why, but I did.
Well, okay, so I don't mind, like, the jokes that are going on, like, the ceiling's 20 feet tall. He was crouching, like, all of that, like, seeing them freaked out is funny to me. But this episode does this weird thing where every time there's an epic fight, they cut away.
This is true.
There's only so much they can...
until you said that.
There's only so much they can show on TV, obviously, for budgetary reasons. But if you're going to be like, there was this epic fight, cut away.
Well, they're definitely... I'm okay with not seeing whatever the budget would have allowed them to do with a farting dragon.
Sure, it would have looked as ridiculous as the demon from Expecting.
Oh, probably worse. I just can't imagine that ever looking good on screen. The Angel Boone fight at the end. Well, the first fight they cut away because I'm assuming that once they're out of view of people, Boone lets Angel go. The second one
right.
with the showdown, I'm okay with that. Cutting away from that because it couldn't have been as epic as they hyped it up to be.
Exactly. And the fact that he had already previously said, like, it took us 3 hours however long it took them to have the super epic fight before, like, we're not going to get to see that. And it just leaves it up to the imagination, which I think works a lot more effectively. It does the nice change over to him throwing the bag of money.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. There is something a little strange about them always, like them not showing, which they don't always have to. Like, I don't need to see the two-headed farting dragon or whatever it is.
Fire dragon. I'm assuming all dragons fart. This one just has fire coming out of its bum. Really, I just think we should devote about an hour on this dragon.
The whole episode.
Because I think that's really the star. Let's be honest. Is that dragon.
And then pulling intestines the size of your leg.
Mm-hmm.
Should they be able to kill a gigantic...
No, they shouldn't. They really shouldn't be able to do anything without Angel, but I'm willing to accept it because what else are they going to do?
Well, I didn't even know if with Angel they could have killed a gigantic.
No, but I think they shouldn't be able to do any of the things that they've been able to do so far. Gunn has like a crew of 20 teenagers that are conditioned to fight, and they struggle. But now, just with Leslie, who is not that skilled of a fighter, he's able to take down a two-headed dragon.
Maybe the dragon demon thing couldn't move very much in a really cramped.
That's true.
Underground.
We are really talking too much about the dragon. That's not even on the screen. It is a part of a 2-scene storyline.
Okay, so let's talk about Angel.
Mm-hmm.
I found him really interesting in this episode. The thing that was most surprising to me was how effective him being creepy is working in this episode.
Well, I think this episode lives or dies on if Angel intensity level is at the same that it's been, and it's believable, and he's still creepy as he's been, and off-color and unhinged. And for me, he is. From the serial killer wall to the fact that he really doesn't seem to care too much about Anne.
Right. He really just wants to stick it to Wolfram and Hart. Yeah. But he's like honed his stalker.
Oh, yeah. He's on full stalker mode.
And for like the first time, so Angel has done this thing in the past where he talks a big game and is trying to intimidate other demons, other humans, whatever, right? We've seen him like threaten Lindsay, like, "Oh, I'll see you real soon," and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never really like been scared that he would ever do anything. Like, that's all talk. But in that car scene with Lila,
yes,
it was really actually genuinely terrifying.
I don't think that he's actually. I don't think the show would ever go there. That he would actually do the things that he says he's going to do to Lila. But I believe him, and I think he's acting and trying to intimidate her, but it comes off as very believable performance of intimidating her.
I mean, it's a lot more. Yeah, I don't know. It felt very Angelus-like.
Well, yeah, he's really where he's been kind of like silent and just angry all the time. That's what I think that it's more of a performance, because he really seems to be channeling Angelus at that moment just to scare her, especially when he tells her that the begging comes later.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. For some reason, it hit me a lot stronger than any other time he's...
Oh, it hit me too. I'm just saying that I don't... From what I believe that Angel's headspace is at, that I don't think that he's actually going to do that to Lila.
Right, and they have Lindsay later, say, he's not actually going to do that. He's just trying to get in your head. He doesn't kill humans, at least.
Not directly.
Not directly, yeah. He's not quite there yet.
Yeah, it's just the fact that Angel... Because they're walking a line still, where eventually he's going to have to come back from this. And if he ever harms a human directly or kills Lila and Lindsay, for me, not that I'm going to be done with the show, but I'm going to have a very hard time believing that he could ever be redeemed. Right now, he's just on this personal mission to take out Wolfram and Hart, and at the top of taking out Wolfram and Hart is to take down Lila and Lindsay, which is why I think this episode works. Because what he does is pretty substantial, really. He robs them of $2.8 million. And I don't think that we're ever going to have a storyline where Wolfram and Hart is struggling financially, but that's a pretty big hit. And especially since Lila and Lindsay do not seem to be the golden children as they were before.
He basically sums it up in that car. Like, you keep screwing with me, you keep screwing with me, you keep screwing with me, now I'm going to screw with you. Mm-hmm. Like, he's finally taking the fight to them and putting intense focus on, in particularly, Lila and Lindsay. Yeah, I think it was substantial, and it still is pretty gray. I mean, he's robbing a charity
Well, yeah, that is my issue with the episode, and I wish they would have committed to Angel taking the money, or Boone taking the money, and he doesn't really care about Anne's shelter. Instead, what happens is he says he doesn't care, but then he really does, and he gives her the money, and I feel like that is a little bit too soft for him.
See, to me, I actually kind of liked it. Like, we've gotten Angel throughout this episode. I mean, when he first shows up with Anne, you kind of get that feeling like it's old Angel, how he would interact with helpless women before or whatever.
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty blonde lady who needs help.
Exactly. But then we see that he's just doing the stalker thing. But then later he's, like, honest with her.
Well, he's pretending to be honest with her. If he was honest with her, he would have told her that he has this plan with Boone. He's using her as much as he's using Lila and Lindsay.
To a degree. I mean, I agree with you.
That's what I think works for me about this, is he really doesn't seem to really care about her shelter for the majority of the episode. It's just in how he can leverage her to get back at Wolfram Hart. But then in the last scene, suddenly he's always been about this.
I don't think it's necessarily sudden. I think it's going back and forth to me. Like, I think there's still part of Angel that does care. I know he's been Mr. Apathetic.
Well, yeah.
Since Darla. So for me, especially that last scene was interesting because they do have the scene right before that where he said that you still care, the money was tainted, and then for him to show up with the money and Anne to just very willingly take it. Mm-hmm. But it shows interesting things about both Anne and Angel. Like, Angel isn't completely gone.
No, I agree that he's not completely gone. I think it just would have worked better if the money never came up again. I think it's a stronger moment to end on him telling her that you don't really want it. Which, even though it's kind of, I believe that Angel believes that the money's tainted, but I don't understand why Anne doesn't bring up that not really, because anyone who donated to that charity doesn't necessarily know that what Wolfram and Hart were going to do with it. It's true that whatever Wolfram and Hart were going to do with the money probably wouldn't be good.
Yeah, if Wolfram and Hart gets even a cent of that, it's funding evil things.
I did like when he asked her if she's really okay knowing where that money's going. But when he says it's tainted, that's not necessarily true, because I'm thinking the majority of the people there, as vapid and stupid as they are, know that they're donating to some kind of charity.
Right.
And are doing it because they're donating to a charity. But I did really like Anne in this episode, if you want to talk about that.
Sure. I like Anne in this episode because it's not necessary to have her previous run on Buffy.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about that? Because we can not talk about it or talk about it as whatever. Because it doesn't really matter. Besides Merle saying that she used to have a couple names, there's no kind of hint that she was ever in Sunnydale.
Right. But it's nice to have a little, like, it's nice for fans of both shows just to have that recognition. But it's not necessary for new viewers, which is nice. Like, I'd rather them do stuff like that if they're going to bring back someone from the past.
Well, here's why bringing over characters from Buffy have worked to the show's benefit. Because with the other damsels in distress, I can think of maybe 2 or 3, one of them being Virginia, where it seemed that they had a life before Angel came into it. I think one of them was Virginia. I think Tina in the pilot, and as much as I didn't like her, I think, what was her name? Rachel? Raven, the actress? Raven was the character. I don't remember what the actress's name was.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head.
It doesn't matter. But I do think that even with her, there was a sense that she had a life before she met Angel. With everybody else, I feel like their lives begin and end with Angel's involvement in them. Maybe the girl with the powers that was abused by her father, her too, and I don't remember her name. Which says a lot. But what I'm saying is, it helps with the character and and it's probably an issue of time, but I don't think the writers really sit down and think about when they have someone with a vision that they really plan out their lives just in the barest sense that they existed before Cordelia got a vision about them. And it helps because it helps the way the actor performs it. It helps the way you write that character. And with Anne, since she's had 2 episodes of Buffy, the actress, acting this character, and there is a history, she can draw on that, and it makes her seem like a more fully realized person than random blonde who Cordelia gets a vision about that Angel saves, and he might have feelings for her because he reminds her of Buffy in some way.
Right. Well, I think if you'd seen the other 2 episodes that have her, it's nice, like, snapshots of her life.
Well, and she's definitely changed from those 2 episodes. There's a definite sense of growth, but there's a sense of growth if you know, but even if you don't, she seems to be very savvy and understands what's going on, especially when she's talking to Lindsay, and just her opinion about this money in general. It's not like she is accepting of whatever Angel says because he's really serious about it. It's that she understands that Wolfram Hart might be cheating her, but it's more money than she's ever had before, so she doesn't care. And she knows what demons are, but she's not, I don't remember what she says to Lindsay. I think she says something like she's not naive. She knows that he's a vampire and whatever. And she obviously knows that Boone's a demon, because how could you not? He's just a really big Halloween enthusiast.
I just like how Lindsay tries to shrug it off first. He's like, "Oh, I brought Muscle." It's like, yeah, it's
a Muscle who's blue skinned and has weird things around his lips.
It's a blue guy.
He's 7 feet tall.
If they didn't immediately have Anne be like, "So that guy's not human, huh?" I really would have had a problem with Lindsay just being like...
Well, I buy that Lindsay thinks he can get away with it because he's smug and he's an idiot.
Yeah, he thinks he can manipulate Anne. I like the fact that people keep trying to manipulate Anne.
And she's not having it. She's not having it from Lindsay, and she's not having it from Angel.
Exactly.
The thing I really like is when she realizes that she's been just as much played as everyone else, you can immediately see her in the background and she looks angry, and then she immediately goes and slaps Angel across the face.
Right. I mean, it definitely sucks for her. She gets
$2.8 million at the end. I don't think we should feel that sorry for her.
Well, yeah.
But before that, yes.
The fact that she, is trying to make ends meet, and she has a genuine worry for these kids on the street, and she's actually doing good work, but she's not getting any help, and so she's trying to do it all by herself, and have this company that is going to help her turn out to be just, Evil Incorporated, as Merle says. And then, have Angel screw her over at the end only to find out that he's going to give her the money anyways. But
that's why I'm okay that she gets the money at the end. Because I want her to get the money. And she deserves to get the money. So I don't have a terrible issue with it. I just think it's weird thematically that Angel says, "You don't really care about this, and I'm just going to screw you over because it's all about my personal vendetta." And then he gets the money and then he gives it to her. I mean, once he gets the money, I understand from his point of view that he gives it to her, because what else is he going to do?
Right. He doesn't need the money.
No. He might actually need the money, but he's not going to take it. Because he doesn't care about those things right now. If Cordelia was still around, I think there'd be a lot different conversation about what they're going to do with the money.
He could actually fix the hotel. Yeah.
I mean, he could he could take the 5%, less than 5% that they were going to give her. But he doesn't. He gives it all to her.
Yeah. I don't know. I like the ending because what it does say about both Anne and Angel. And from Anne's perspective, she's not naive. She's still kind of street smart, and she is a little more gray than Angel says in the episode. She is still willing to take the blood money. That was a little bit too cheesy for me, that there's actual blood on the money. It's a little on the nose.
Oh, it's very on the nose.
It's getting hit over the head with a hammer, but I still like the moment.
I do like that she is completely fine with it and just says it'll wash out.
Yeah.
It makes complete sense to me that she is able to run this homeless shelter, and she's able to do it quite well. She has enough toughness, but she also is compassionate enough to do it.
Right.
All right.
And okay.
What? Do you have more to say about it?
I was just gonna say that, like, we see that in the episode. Mm-hmm. Like, even the brief moment when she's talking to that other woman saying, you know, if he shows up drunk again, just don't, he knows the rules, he can't come in.
Mm-hmm. No, I really like her.
Like, she works really well in the episode.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's just talk about Lila and Lindsay, which I don't know. We've talked about them a little bit, but what I do want to talk about is Mr. Reed and how poor of a Holland substitute he is.
He is the poor man's Holland's substitute.
If Holland is your evil uncle, I feel like he's the evil bald guy from Sex and the City. And I don't know his name and never watched that show, but that's who he reminds me of, and I didn't find him threatening at all. What I did like is, as menacing as Holland could be at times, now that he's gone, we get the definite sense that Lila and Lindsay were only protected because Holland did seem to have some sort of affection for them, because everyone else they've talked to in the higher-ups seems to hate them. A lot.
Yeah, getting the last moment with Mr. Reed was really nice. Although I really wish he was played like, they needed to have like an all-star cast of bald, horn-rimmed glasses guys. Mm. We should get Stanley Tucci.
Well, Stanley Tucci is amazing in everything. So that's not even a comparison. That is not fair to Mr. Reed to compare him to Stanley Tucci.
I'm just really obsessed with the idea of seeing Stanley Tucci as a Wolfram & Hart employee.
I am, but Stanley Tucci could do anything and it'd be amazing. Stanley Tucci could be Boone and I'd be all right with it.
Yeah, Mr. Reed doesn't. He's not as engaging as Holland.
No. I did have an actual reaction to hearing Holland's voice on the screen. And I've been watching Friends on Netflix, and also he's Phoebe's doctor in one episode, and I was afraid for Phoebe's life the entire episode.
I saw he was on some exorcism movie as a priest.
Well, he was probably an evil priest.
It freaked me out. Like, just seeing him now really freaks me out. He was so good.
Well, in Friends, he's her doctor that's obsessed with Happy Days and Fonzie, which is a stupid joke, to be honest. But he does sell it. I will be honest.
I liked the video a lot in this episode. It was like just how evil he is, and to see him like playing with the dog and everything.
Well, it's just like a 10-second clip, just showing the different sides of Holland that we always know are there. That he's kindly, but he will stab you in the neck. But now he's dead, so he's not stabbing anybody.
Can we change the world? At Wolfram & Hart, we're counting on
it. I hope that Mr. Reed is not our permanent Holland substitute. But I did, as I said, I did really like that Lila and Lindsay are in a precarious position, which is why I think it might seem minimal what Angel does in this, but he really does. It's a pretty substantial hit on their career. Because once again, he's foiled them. And he's done it pretty easily. And
they haven't helped themselves.
No.
Making fools of themselves. They keep running back and forth, pushing people out of the way.
Yeah, it was like the end of Clue. That's what that
was. It was a little ridiculous.
Well, it was, because they were paranoid. But I did find it, and I think it was supposed to be at least a bit comical how nuts they are running back and forth.
Right. The ending feels a little strange to me.
Well, I feel like there's a little bit too much of the embarrassing video of Cordelia and Wesley, especially the last thing we see of Wesley, because I do not understand what that is. Besides, it's Wesley doing embarrassing things, but what is the logic between Wesley taking off his pants and rubbing his thighs? Who is that for?
If they were like separate videos, maybe
it's all on the same tape too.
If he like made it for Virginia, maybe him trying to be sexy.
Oh God! Oh, I don't want to think about that.
But the Cordelia stuff worked for me.
Well, yeah, I think the Cordelia stuff is fine because for most part, it seems like her audition tape, and she's just trying to do things, and it's funny, and I just feel like it goes on a bit too long, where it stops being funny, it just starts feeling awkward, and I'm also a bit confused because I didn't remember this episode, and I don't remember that this whole thing is a fake. It just seems to go too long, and I'm thinking, well, is there actually going to be tape of Lila and Lindsay at some point, and this is just a joke for it, or what's going on? I don't think it's paced well when the videotape goes in. I think there's too many jokes, and it just seems to drag a bit.
Yeah, I agree. It does drag. It drags the episode down a little bit. I mean, it has to be long enough that you buy that Boone could knock out the guards, take the money, and run.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm not thinking that Boone has a whole lot of trouble with that, since
right.
he is an 8-foot-tall blue demon with brass knuckle powers.
Yeah, and we saw him beating the crap out of Angel repeatedly, so...
It has to be enough that there's a distraction enough.
Yeah.
But I'm willing. I don't really need that much realism in that moment, and I really don't need to see whatever Wesley's doing to his thigh.
The thing that I did like from Mr. Reed was, well, besides saying that Lila and Lindsay are in the hot seat and they need to pile up wins, was adding to the mythology of Angel, or at least spelling out more of Wolferman's
I don't think they said it so explicitly. Maybe they have, and it's just been a while, but it was nice to get that there are multiple prophecies where Angel says that Angel will play a big part in this apocalypse. And it did make me think, so the senior partners must in some way be tied to fate. Like they can't go against the prophecies. Because if there really are all these prophecies and then you don't know what side he's going to be on it, I'm kind of with Lindsay on this, that why don't we just kill him? And then you don't have to worry about what side he's on because he's dead. But it seems that the senior partners, in the same way that the powers that be, are somehow tied to fate and they can't go against the prophecy.
Right. They seem as much tied to fate as his powers that be.
They're just the other side of the powers that be. Presumably.
Right. Which is, well, it is interesting. Like, yes, they're evil, but I don't know if I would consider them, I don't know if I find them just to be the corporation that's just going to try and take advantage of all situations, or if they have the ultimate goal of...
Well, it's definitely... Mr. Reed says there's two sides. So, the powers that be and the senior partners seem to be of two different sides, but I have said before that I don't think the powers that be seem to be wholly good. But it's definitely a binary situation where on one side you have the senior partners, on the other side you have the powers that be.
Right. But yeah, so having justification of why Angel's still alive, and just how effective Angel was at being in the gray in this episode, like, it really helped sell their plan.
Yeah.
And, like, they're still... Wolfram and Hart, even though they just lost some money, is still winning what they want to accomplish. No,
I don't... I mean, he probably could have done something more drastic, but I'm willing to accept that this is a Case of the Week episode, and it didn't... They've done it before in the season where they've been ramping up Angel's intensity, and then he just becomes funny, jokey guy. But in this one, right. He's still in the same headspace that he's been in, and it's still... He's not fully gone yet, but he's still pretty nasty of a person. Or at least pretty apathetic of a person. So this episode worked for me. And I went into it with a lot of trepidation, knowing it's the Case of the Week, and knowing that the show... I think I've given off the impression that I don't like Case of the Week episodes, which is not necessarily true. I just don't think the show is particularly adept at doing them so far.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, which was kind of the fault of season 1.
Mm-hmm.
And so anytime there is a Case of the Week episode, I'm kind of, like, apprehensive about it.
Yes.
Doesn't mean that they can't have good Case of the Week episodes.
No, they've done good standalone episodes. It just, law of the averages is they haven't done. There's been more mediocre to bad Case of the Weeks than there have been good and decent ones. Yeah. But we are the only ones that have that opinion, apparently. Because the feedback is not very positive. And I'm actually excited because now, for the first time, we get to order it in most positive to most negative. And we haven't been able to do that before. So this is exciting for me. And we'll just go down the line of people that really hate this.
Alrighty.
So first up in feedback, we have Alicia who said the good. Cordelia's apartment. I saw she moved into the hotel. Angel talking again. Favorite scenes? Angel and Lila's conversation in Lila's car. Angel can use vamp seed, that has to be a first. And Merle. Bad. Angel has a creepy stalker wall. The last time they hyped up a demon, the outcome was terrible. This time, there was no outcome. Other. When Lindsay and Lila were talking, I keep staring at Lindsay's creepy plastic hand, and it was distracting. So we have a fire-breathing 20-foot demon, and a demon named Boone. I don't know which one is worse. Yes, I do. Boone is worse. Angel and Boone were working together this whole time. The new Wolfram Hart person has a pointed head. Is it just me who noticed this? Wesley's strip dance was disturbing. And it was. So thank you, Alicia. Did you notice Mr. Reed's pointed head? Because
I did not notice Mr. Reed's pointed head.
I kind of did. It's not like Conehead bad, but it's not like... He doesn't have a perfectly... He probably shouldn't be bald, and I don't know if that's completely his choice. He might just be bald. That's probably better than having a little bit of hair. But it's unfortunate that he is bald, because he does have a little bit of point to his head. Nothing about Mr. Reed works for me.
I mean, he seems a lot more stereotypical mustache twirler bad guy. He doesn't bring anything.
No, he doesn't
new
bring the
different.
same energy that Holland did. And I actually think the guy who gave Lila and Lindsay their job was a better version of Mr. Reed than Mr. Reed.
Oh, yeah.
Because
I don't know.
He seemed like pretty harsh, and he seemed actually scary. Mr. Reed just like, he's kind of like mousy sort of looking, or just innocent looking, but then he has this real edge. And I don't think he doesn't do anything bad. He's just not as charismatic as Holland or anyone else that we've met from Wolfram Hart.
Yeah, I miss Holland. Mm-hmm. And him never blinking.
Yeah. So
it was the eyes. That's how he sells it. That's completely how he sells it. Again, cutting away from all the epic fights was awkward. I don't know. It does leave an empty feeling.
See, I'm
never
going to
build up to a moment
anything from the action. That's just me personally. I'd rather watch more talking than a fight scene. But I will acknowledge that they do seem to hype it up a lot, and then they don't deliver. It's better for me that they don't try to deliver and leave it up to the imagination than trying to deliver and failing.
Right. I mean, I agree with you. It does just put a weird taste in my mouth.
I can get that.
So the Angel vamp speed and the
when Angel uses Speed Force powers
in Lila's car,
or Batman powers, really.
Yeah, it's Batman. It's very Batman.
I feel like we've seen it before. I don't know.
I don't know if we've seen any vampire run super fast. I mean, I imagine they're faster than regular people, but
no, we see. Yeah, it just works that she turns around and he's not there because he's mysterious and he's sort of evil.
How did he open the door and shut the door?
There's a lot of questions there. And the only way it works is if he has powers like the Flash and he can move without anybody seeing him, but there's no way vampires are that fast.
He's just like vaporized.
Yeah.
Went through the door. Mm-hmm.
There's not even a sound of the door shutting. He's just not there anymore.
We didn't talk much about Merle in this episode. Did you like Merle?
He's fine. I mean, I'm not like, yay, there's a Merle scene, but I don't not dislike him, which is quite possible with this type of character. What I did really like is Angel judging his interior decorating decisions.
Really? I thought the beanbag joke was kind of flat to me. It's funny. I mean, it's trying to give Angel a bit of comedy without
joke that works with Angel's emotional headspace at this moment.
Beanbag chairs.
And then I liked it.
The little head
yeah,
shake.
the head shake and that he's just disgusted. And I guess I really do think that you need a little bit of levity with Angel, because if he's super serious all the time, it's going to become rather repetitive.
Right. And for how little the rest of the gang is in the episode, that they do need a little bit of jokes here and there.
I don't think the arguments about what we're going to name the agency were particularly funny. If we're talking about jokes that didn't work when they're arguing about their names.
Right. I don't think it's particularly funny, but I like the gang bickering at least. Whenever Gunn and Cordelia both tell Wesley to shut up, it's pretty funny too.
Obviously, because if anybody needs to be told to shut up, it's Wesley.
No, Lindsay.
Oh, well,
Lindsay
I'm talking about people that I actually like that can be great. Lindsay just shouldn't exist.
Lindsay went straight back into his full, non-interesting...
I'm pretty much done with him. It was fun while it lasted, but I'm over him now.
He needs to come out with another single.
Yeah. So wonderful. Anyway, do you want to talk about Kanem now?
Sure. So next up we have Kanem. And he says, so it's kind of hard to come up with comments on this average Angel episode. Let's see if Blood Money can inspire 3 questions for William and Derek. 1. Does bringing in a very occasional character like Chanterelle, Lily /Anne that most of the audience doesn't recognize add much to the show? Would the story be any different if this was a new character? 2. Didn't this seem like a low-stakes, mustache-twirling scheme from Wolfram & Hart to engage in? Sure, Angel wants to be Batman, but why is the evil law firm plotting like Adam West Batman villains? Doesn't this undercut their menace? 3. Boone is the best thing about this episode and a rare one-off character that I wanted more of. And Kanem gave this a 57 out of 100.
Well, I'm sorry to say that I think Boone's super dead.
Right.
And
he's all over that money.
Well, it's somebody's blood, and Angel didn't look like he had any open wounds.
Well, his face was all black and blue.
But he didn't have any open wounds, is what I'm saying.
Right.
You can't just bleed from a bruise. See, I don't feel it's a low-stakes scheme, but I feel like it's one of many they have going on. And it's one that Lila and Lindsay happen to be in charge of. And they're already... They have to get their money somewhere.
Besides their clients?
Yeah. I don't feel like this... It's not as a bombastic thing as we're going to bring back this dead vampire to screw with our arch nemesis who's going to come back as human and blah, 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 we're evil.
Yeah, it comes across like this is one of the many, many things that Wolfram & Hart does on a daily basis.
Yes. But it just happens to be that Lila and Lindsay need some wins, and they're in charge of this, and Angel screws it up for them again. It's a low-level scheme, but $2.8 million is not chump change.
Right.
It's a pretty big hit.
And I think, more importantly, this might have been something that, obviously the higher-ups are watching Lila and Lindsay. Mm-hmm. That's the important thing to Angel.
Yes.
He wants to screw with them. He wants them to look bad to their higher-ups so that they might actually kill them.
Yeah. He knows he knows somehow that they got the promotion, so he must know that they're competing for this. I think Angel's plan is probably first on the agenda is kill Darla and Drew. Second is to either disgrace Lyle and Lindsay so they get fired or have someone else kill them. And then 3, the big plan is just to take down Wolfram & Hart.
Right.
But he needs to do the personal things first before he can focus on the other things.
So, it was a little mustache twirly, but I think it's fully in the realm of possibilities.
Besides the fact that they're stealing charity from poor, innocent, homeless kids.
Exactly. It feels like stealing candy from a baby.
Well, they are, but I don't feel... Because mustache twirling seems cheesy to me. I just think that this is just a scheme that they pull off. It doesn't... I have no... mustache twirling, I feel, seems like evil for just evil's sake, that they're just so evil. Look how evil they are. But this just... I can buy that they do... In their minds, they're raising a little bit of money for this charity. And Anne says, it's more than she's ever gotten before. It's just they're taking most of it. It's not like they
Right.
take. It's not as if their plan is to take everything they get.
To me, I think it's not cheesy, but it is kind of evil for evil's sake. Wolfram and Hart doesn't have to do this.
Well, what are you assuming they get money from? They obviously have a lot of expenses.
I assume that they get all of their money from.
I can't.
Well, I mean,
I can't think
things
as
like
much,
this and clients and.
I can't think they get so much money from clients all the time. I think they have to have schemes, illegal schemes like this that they're working to get as much money as they have. Because it seems like a pretty big law firm, and I don't think there are that many evil people in lawsuits.
I imagine,
or demon. I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know.
Whatever.
I imagine they do stuff like this all the time, and I imagine that they have an abundance of wealth. Like, I don't think they're ever running out of money.
No, but I don't. We're never going to get the Wolfram and Hart or down on their luck financially.
What I did like the real world application to this, having Angel talk about the big company and you only get, 5%. Obviously, that's a direct dig at real world charities that have this kind of problem that people get taken advantage of. So, I mean, that was nice to have.
So that's why I don't feel like it's mustache twirling. Because I find complete plausibility that they do this all the time.
No, well, I find it very plausible, and I don't really.
I do understand that it's
too much, but
I understand that it's a low-level thing, and Angel has been so intense that he's just going after this one charity that they're after when he could set his sights higher. I get that. I just don't feel that this is completely insignificant and it doesn't matter at all because Lila and Lindsay need some wins.
And I think, like you said, like I don't think Angel mostly doesn't give a crap about the charity or Anne. He's focused solely, intently on Lila and Lindsay. Mm-hmm. So it's because they're involved that he's even involved.
The top of his serial killer wall is not all the pictures of Anne. At the top is her talking to Lindsay. And that's what he's most focused on because he's in love with him. But also because he has this personal vendetta against him. We talked about Anne, and I think if they had written her the same way that she's written and she's performed exactly the same, I don't think there would be that much of a difference because they don't really acknowledge that she has a past at all. I mean, has a past that you should know.
Yeah, I like her because it doesn't change the enjoyment of her in the episode, but having the previous episodes, I think, does add. It just puts more context to it.
To be honest, I don't think it's that much a spoiler. This won't be the last time we see Anne. I've made it through the entire series, and I had no idea that Anne was even in Buffy. So it didn't affect me at all. I had no idea that this person existed on Buffy. I remember Chanterelle and Lily. I just didn't know it was the same person.
Right.
So I don't think it really changes that much. I think it's mostly what it is an Easter egg, but it also helps in the performance and the writing that she has a past that they can draw from.
Right. What I like, if you're like digging at like getting the snapshots of her life, where she's at now is after she's interacted with Buffy personally, and then she seems to embody much more strength.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something to that.
I just think that's a nice Easter egg for fans that doesn't affect your enjoyment one way or the other. If you like Anne, you like Anne on her own merits, really.
Right, exactly.
Okay. So now we got to talk about Joseph, who does not like this episode and is quite passionate about it. So, here we go. Joseph wrote, I hated this episode. It probably offended me more than she. I'm not saying it's literally worse, but OFMG, is this a case study in wasted potential? It started out fine. I like the twist when Angel turns off his dorky attitude and realizes he's been stalking Anne, and everything with Cordy, Gunn, and Wes was great, especially Wes and Gunn telling Cordy about the dragon, and it was also nice to see Helen again. After that, everything varied from bad to awful. After the great success of The Shroud of Ramon, another heist story, Angel is supposed to be over the edge dangerous, and he settles for playing pranks on Lila and Lindsay, and for stealing a little money. He's a better stalker than that. Kill Lila's fish, draw pictures of her while she sleeps, burn down her house, or put thug number 1 in the hospital. Last week, he was killing demon armies and setting people on fire. That's badass. This week, he's somewhat embarrassing and inconveniencing Lila and Lindsay. Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone was darker than Angel in this episode. Just, wow. Anyway, he humiliated Cordy and Wes in front of hundreds of people, many of whom apparently know Wes, and who Cordy might be meeting on her job search. For what? A joke that only the viewing audience can get. New Holland is boring. I don't like the angry, sulky version of Lindsay. He was interesting in the wine cellar when he seemed he just didn't give an F. That makes him dangerous instead of an angry little yappy dog biting at Angel's shoes. For a second, when he got in New Holland's face, I thought we were going to get Don't Give a Crap Lindsay, but then he started yapping and peeing on things, and now I hate him again. If I were to do a rewrite of this, I'd change 2 things. 1, make Angel a lot scarier. Easiest solution, have Angel bite Lila in the car. That would give Lila a lot more reason to freak out and make a more interesting dynamic, as Lindsay decided he didn't much care if Lila died. 2, have Angel use confusion to frame Wolfram and Hart for the theft, so that they were in some real trouble. For example, instead of running for the tape, Lindsay and Lila are set up in such a way that they're seen leaving with the money bag, which turns out to be a fake. So, thank you, Joseph, who is very passionate.
He's very passionate, but he makes a very passionate case and some good points.
Okay, I agree with New Holland and the court. And no, well, I think I just agree with the New Holland thing.
Well, I mean, we agree with New Holland. We agree with Lindsay.
Oh, well, yeah, Lindsay. I mean, I don't see that as a necessary bad thing in the episode, really, because I just consider it a fluke where he was momentarily interesting.
It doesn't have the same, dramatic wallop of killing a demon army and setting people on fire, but it's still very personal, and I still found Angel being effectively creepy with his stalkerness and the scene with Lila's car. Here's
something that I really do disagree with Joseph's comment. He should not bite Lila. That's just no.
Is there anything darker that Angel could do that you would still think he could be redeemed?
For me, if he ever directly harms any human, that's going to be, not that I'm going to be done with the show, like I said, I'm going to have a very hard time believing that he's ever going to come back from it.
I mean, minus chopping off Lindsay's hand.
Well, okay, if he bites her, that is basically killing her.
Well,
I mean, you could bite her just to, scare her, but if there's a difference between chopping off Lindsay's hand and tasting a human's blood, which has already been established as, a trigger for him.
Right.
To be real evil. I don't think that he's if he had bit Lila, I feel like that's an escalation that is unnecessary. Because I don't find anything. I find him pretty threatening and scary in that car scene.
Yeah.
Because he's acting like Angelus.
Well, he's acting like Angelus, and I think there is a case to be said that, so he's been tiptoeing this gray line this entire time, right? Mm-hmm. And he's continually getting darker and darker. Having the looming threat that he might actually do something is working for me. So I don't think he needs to bite Lila. It could have been effective for him to be, almost bite her.
See, I don't have any... Joseph obviously doesn't like the car scene in general, but I think it really works for me. Because he's acting like Angelus, he's getting off on her fear, and he comes off as sexually aggressive, which it always works for some reason when Angel comes off as sexually aggressive, because he so rarely is, and he's so repressed, and what he's talking about is really just threatening her life, and he gets off on that.
Right.
That works for me. That's a pretty dark thing, even though I think most of it is really just a play to freak her out. He's not actually going to do it. Because Angel doesn't care, but that doesn't mean he's evil yet.
Right. Not having he describes it as being a prank.
No, I don't think it's
like
a prank either. And it's not a little bit of money. Maybe relatively for what Wolfram Hart has, but
right.
I do think that's a sizable chunk. The heist story, the problem with the Shadow of Ramona is it's a terrible heist story. This is actually pretty clever, what Angel manages to do. It is a little bit weird. Boone seems a little bit out of place in this episode until the reveal happens, but the overall plan that Angel pulls off is actually pretty clever.
I guess it's weird that they fight and then they fall down and then they're just kind of buddy on the side and talking.
Well, yeah. Well, at that point,
haha, we got you.
Well, at that moment, they pulled it off. Because what Boone wants is he has this whole honor code thing that he just wants to get in this fight with Angel.
Right.
He doesn't seem to be that bad of a demon. Maybe he is. I mean, they met in the 1920s, so Angel would have had a soul at that point. Even though he wasn't, we already know that Angel, once he got a soul, wasn't.
So is he? I mean, he has to be bad enough that Angel's willing to kill him.
Yeah. I mean, there is a difference for me for him killing demons. He sets 2 vampires on fire. It's not like he's setting 2 innocent humans that aren't going.
Right.
He's killing demons that would be a part of an army to kill other people, and his plan is eventually to kill Darla and Drusilla, and I don't think that we should feel that he shouldn't do those things. They're interesting characters, but if you don't think vampires should die, then Buffy's whole mission is just screwed up and she's a mass murderer.
Right. If there was a real situation where you were trying to save every vampire or get them human again, then it puts a really dark spin on everything because you're like, oh, he's killing tons and tons of people.
No, because I think fundamentally vampires by their nature are always going to want to kill people.
Right.
It's more of a mercy to just stake them than to try to reform them because that's probably going to end up badly. So I feel like he's at the same level, and if he escalates any more, Wolfram Hart, not good people, so he lets them die, which is pretty dark, and it is as dark for me as he can get, and he has kind of backed off from that, from going directly against humans. But there's an indirectness in that I'm okay with it, and it's also not. He just lets them fall on their own sword that they created.
Right. I don't think I would have enjoyed them escalating things in an episode that's kind of fillerish, or that's a case of the week.
Mm-hmm. He's going to... I'm thinking he might escalate at some point, but it needs to come out... he's not going to do it on this episode. I'm willing to accept that I know this is a case of week, and they need to space out some time. And as long as he doesn't... Because Joseph, I feel thinks that he reverts back, and he's less scary now. Joseph, I think, feels what I was afraid would happen, that he loses some of his intensity here. And I don't feel that he does. I think he's just on the same track.
Right.
And I do think humiliating Cordelia and Wesley in that public setting also suggests how little he cares at this point, because he doesn't seem to care. Or he doesn't act like he cares about anybody around him. So I agree that he does humiliate them, but that just suggests to me that he's chopping away at his humanity and his connections to it.
Right. I think they do a good job in this episode of... I mean, I know he's acting for the most part like his old self in moments, but I think they do a good job of him kind of... He's on that line of gray and kind of... seems sort of good with Anne, then goes really dark with Lila in the car. He's always just tiptoeing that line and going back and forth. And they're doing a really nice job of keeping him in the same headspace, of keeping him in that consistent dark area without him going too far one way or the other.
Yeah, I agree.
And I find the back and forth to be the interesting part.
And he is back and forth because he said in the last episode that he was still too close to his humanity to just stake Darla and Drew. Like, if he really didn't care, he'd at least try to kill them. But he hasn't done it yet. He hasn't even attempted.
If he really didn't care, he wouldn't give Anne the money.
No, if he really didn't care, he wouldn't give Anne the money. I still think it works better thematically in this episode if he doesn't give her the money. If that scene with Boone doesn't even happen. Like, that's the last thing we see. Him saying, the money's tainted, you don't need it. I think that just works better thematically for what this episode was about. That he doesn't really... Because it seems like he cares, but he really doesn't, and it's all about the personal vendetta. But I do want her to get the money, so I'm all right with it. All right.
So next up, it's not even the way back.
Last week. It's 7 days is a long time for you.
So next up, we have a comment on redefinition, and it's Joseph, and he says, redefinition. I agree that Hoodie Angel is not as gleeful and, thankfully, not as chatty as in Jealous, but he does have one striking and jealous quality. Instead of coming straight at Darla and Drew, he is stalking them and breaking them down psychologically. It's the main reason I don't like the voiceover in redefinition. I think it's very effective to watch how freaked out Darla and Drew are by Hoodie Angel. And I'd rather just leave it at the idea that if you push Angel far enough, he falls back on stalking and mind games, because that's what he knows the best. So thank you, Joseph.
Yeah. I think, for me, the stalking works because it's all about him. He's unable to get close enough to them. So stalking them and freaking them out psychologically, he's able to break down with them, but he can't emotionally confront them yet.
Yeah, he hasn't been pushed quite far enough.
No, I get the feeling that if Angel really gets pushed, he will become Angelus. Like, the moment he stops caring completely, if he ever gets to that point, he'll be very Angelus-like. But I don't think he can do it yet with his soul.
Right. Darla being turned in front of him obviously was a profound moment for him. Mm. But it hasn't, like, broken him completely.
No, he's not broken completely. I think if you really did break Angel completely, he goes back to being Angelus. Right.
And, I think it would take something very, very profound to ever have that happen. But I do like the darker he is, the more Angelus-like he becomes. Mm-hmm. So the stalking, and he escalates that in this week's episode with the stalking.
Well, for me, it's still a performance just to freak her out. I think Lindsay is telling the truth that he just does it to play with her when he acts like Angelus in the car. I don't feel like that's a reflection of his actual headspace at that moment.
See, I found it more of, I don't think he's going to do the things he says. Mm-hmm.
But I think
he's just trying to freak her out. But it comes off more threatening, and it feels like he's accessing a darker part of himself.
Well, yeah.
Where in the past, when he's done similar things to, like, Lindsay, say.
Yes.
Where Lindsay, that's why Lindsay is like, oh, come on, he did that to me. Who cares? He's just messing with you. It comes off more real.
Yeah, he is acting, but I don't, like, because for me, if in that moment he's really that far gone, and the way he acts in the rest of the episode, that's pretty jarring to me. But I think he's accessing it, and I believe him, and I understand why Lila believes him. But I don't think he's at that emotional point yet.
Right. And so, Hoodie Angel. So it's interesting having the Hoodie Angel. I really wish they wouldn't have the voiceover.
Well, no, the voiceover is terrible and it shouldn't exist.
But it's interesting because he was like this different character, like so much so that Darla says, who was that? Mm-hmm. And in this week's episode, to me, it doesn't feel like he's a different character. It seems like he's like balancing between Angel and Angelus.
No, I don't. I would disagree with that. I think he's in the car scene. He's definitely Angelus. I think in this episode, he's still balancing between Angel and whatever he is.
Mr. Apathetic.
Mr. Apathetic. Hoodie Angel, whatever you want to call him. I think, because the Angelus, with the Lila scene, just seems like an outlier to me. I think he's still combating with himself and being Angel and being Vendetta Angel.
Okay.
Rampage Angel. I want to call him Rampage Angel. That's what we're going to call him.
Rampage?
Yeah. That's what we're going to call him. He just needs to wear a bandana and have cancer, and he'll be just like Sterling Archer. But no, I think there seems to be 3 angels now. There's Angel, just normal brooding Angel, then there's Angelus, then there's this version of Angel we're getting now.
Right.
And I think this version of Angel is closer to Angelus than regular Angel, but he is a different entity.
Right. He still has enough of a soul to at least give the charity the money. So, favorite moment?
Okay.
And scores?
Yep. All right. So I went with my favorite moment, the moment when he says to Anne that when Anne confronts him about losing the money and he says that she doesn't need it, or she wouldn't want it anyway. Because I just think that works. And I do think the thing that really works about that, and to show that he's not completely gone yet, is how he still recognizes that what's wrong about him is that he doesn't care. And he seems sad when he delivers that line that she cares and he doesn't. Like, he recognizes that this is a bad thing, and that makes him sad, but he can't help himself.
Right.
Like, if he had, if he could, he would. Deep down, I think he doesn't want to be acting the way he is, but he can't help it. Like, this isn't an ideal situation for him, but that's where he's been led to.
All right. I almost went with the Angel and Lila scene just because of how effective Angel was, but I ended up going with the very end moment when Angel gives Anne the blood money. I know it's a little contradicting to the scene that you just mentioned, but I kind of liked that. It showed different sides to Angel and Anne, and showing that Angel isn't completely gone was kind of nice. And showing Anne in a little grayer light also was equally as effective. And so I got a lot out of that moment, even though it was a little hammer on the head with the blood actually on the money.
Mm-hmm. Little. Okay. It's your favorite moment, so I'm not going to disagree with you. It's just, I feel like it's interesting that we both have contradictory favorite moments in this episode. All right.
So, scores?
Yes. I'm actually going to go up from what we talked about before the podcast, because I was ready to be talked down from the feedback, and you didn't seem to like it before we talked about it, or you had problems with it, but I actually seem to appreciate it more now that we're talking about it, so I think I'm going to give it a 63.
Okay.
So what are you going to give it?
I'm still giving it 61 out of 100. Okay. It's not a big difference. No. I think it just has a lot of little flaws that kind of drag it down, and little awkwardness, especially towards the end with the gang's videotape and the cutaway from all the epic fights. I think there are a lot of nice moments, though. It just has little faults here and there.
Mm-hmm. All right.
All right. And if you'd like to leave us some feedback, you can do so by commenting on the post at theangelrewatch.wordpress.com.
Or you can send an email to theangelrewatch@gmail.com.
Or you can call our voicemail number at 206-203-3276.
You can go to the Tumblr, which is angelrewatch.tumblr.com, to see all the reviews archived there and the gifts of whatever episode we're watching.
We're available on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. While you're there, leave us a review. It really helps promote the show. You can follow me on Twitter at NerdGuyWilliam.
And you can follow me on Twitter and Tumblr at TheConfortador.
And next time, we'll be reviewing Happy Anniversary, where Angel and the host search for a physicist who plans to freeze time.